Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto got betrayed and became the Red X with an Ancient Jutsu in Teen Titans, Part 3. Huge shout out to 26 Lord Pain for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Neji walked into his and the other Konoha nin's hideout before roughly tossing Sasuke's bloody, bruised, and nearly crushed body inside, awakening the prick and making him groan in pain. "Sasuke-kun!" Sakura exclaimed, rushing over to the boy while Kakashi looked up from his book with a raised brow directed to Neji. "What happened?" Kakashi questioned, and Neji narrowed his eyes on Sasuke as Sakura healed him. "He attacked this land's police, murdered more than 24 of them, revealed us to the world at large, then had a confrontation with Naruto, which resulted in his present condition," Neji explained, and Ino slapped her face with a groan. "He just made us a ton load of enemies, didn't he?" she questioned, and Neji nodded while Kakashi could only sigh. "How is he such a genius? I mean, yes, he can use high-powered jutsu, and has a great skill in Tai and Kenjutsu. But seriously, what ninja reveals themselves to the authorities then kills them? Not only that, but now Naruto will be watching for us. Alerted to our presence, it would take nothing short of a miracle or an act of Kami herself just to find him." The older Jounin thought to himself as Ino was glaring at Sasuke, and Hinata walked over to Neji. "And Neji and I. Is Naruto alright?" she questioned with a slight stutter, and Neji frowned to himself. As far as he could tell, Sasuke had got the brunt of that last attack. "Naruto now wears some form of chakra-enhanced armor. Not only that, but it seems his skills have increased greatly. However, his chakra seems slightly sporadic. It is likely that when Sasuke faced him, it was already after he had been weakened from an earlier battle. Or perhaps his training with elemental manipulation left him little time to work on his chakra control," Neji explained, then mused, and Kakashi's eyes widened. He was still trying to grasp the concept of the boy being that dangerous. After all, he thought he mellowed out back when he was 8. "There's no way a weakened Naruto can do this to Sasuke-kun!" Sakura then shouted out towards Neji, who scoffed. Why the hell couldn't Tsunade have sent a competent ninja with them, who wasn't a fangirl? "Believe what you will, Sakura, but it appears that we have misjudged the difference between ourselves and Naruto. Do not forget that he was the one who defeated the supposedly invincible Uchiha Madara," Neji reminded, and Sakura froze. She had forgotten about that and suddenly felt scared. If he could beat Madara, what kind of chance did they have to capture him? "Chance? You don't have a freaking chance, you cheating mother-freaking fish! I personally hope he beats the living hell out of you just so I can shove your fasts into the deepest pits of this mind and take over for myself just to let you know what it's like to be locked away." The angered voice of her inner Sakura called out angrily, and Sakura started to shake, placing her hands over her ears to block out the voice. This had become a problem recently. Her inner self and she had different views on Naruto. Her inner self seemed to like him now, while she still wanted Sasuke, and as it was, she had to keep control lest her inner self make her threats very real. "Neji, was there anything else you could tell about Naruto besides him being weakened?" Kakashi questioned, and Neji frowned slightly. "He seems to have upped his elemental manipulation beyond anything we thought possible, as well as some new taijutsu style I've never seen before," Neji reported, and Kakashi frowned. This was worse than he had thought. Naruto was definitely not going to be beaten easily. And thanks to Sasuke, they had no way of asking anyone for help. Why the freaking hell does everything always have to go south whenever he's involved? "Mom, why does everyone always call me a demon?" a younger Naruto questioned, while his mother was wiping a scratch that was on his right cheek. The woman gave Naruto a slight sad look before smiling and hugging the blonde-haired child. "They just don't understand, Naruto. They just want to make you feel bad because they do," she whispered to the blonde, who closed his eyes as his mother held him close to her, only to open them a second later and find himself in a dark sewer. "Mom?" little Naruto questioned, looking around, then walked down the path before. Soon a strange hymn began to play, a song, which seemed to echo down the halls of the sewer, and never seemed to stop. Shivering, the tiny blonde-haired child walked down the halls of the sewer, only to come upon a massive cage. Kyubi, he whispered and then felt himself return to his full size. What an interesting dream you're having, came a calm voice, and Naruto turned to see a familiar ninja with half a Tora mask covering the right side of his face, the left covered by a mask like Kakashi's and some of his hideout. You! Naruto said with shock and surprise in his voice as the man leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest and white hair smoothed back. So you do remember me, the man said simply as he then pushed off of the wall, folding his arms behind his back as he slowly walked towards Naruto, who assumed a crouched stance. Come now! I'm not the person who killed your mother, child, merely a ghost from another world, the man said simply while Naruto remained on alert. The man chuckled lightly at this, then lifted a head and closed his single visible eye. Beautiful! A symphony of madness, he said, and Naruto twitched, as the man then looked into the cave, the boy following his gaze. He saw Kyubi's eyes open, but something else, he saw 4 red eyes open as well, a pair of toothy grins appearing beneath Kyubi's and the other sets of eyes. Naruto then turned to the man who looked like his tormentor, only for him to reach up and pull off his Tora mask, dropping it to the ground. Soon, the end will begin. And whether you like it or not, child. The man turned at this, and Naruto took a step back, seeing a skeletal face with a red S-shaped symbol at his brow had replaced what he had seen before, his clothes having changed to someone else's as well. There's nothing either you, or she, can do to stop it, the man said ominously, then turned back to the cage, darkness consuming Naruto's vision at that moment. Naruto quickly sat up with a start, only to place a hand onto his head and groan lowly. Okay. What hit me this time, a freight train? Naruto questioned while slowly rubbing his now throbbing head, and then shook it, clearing it of the clouds, only to hear someone's voice. Actually, you and some guy with a sword hit one another with 2 powerful and somehow purely elemental attacks. The dull tone came from nearby, making Naruto stiffen before reaching up and making sure his mask was still on. He then grumbled to himself, seeing as it was, and he hadn't been able to notice it even with his HUD still on. Turning around slowly, Naruto saw he was in a dark room with black and blue painted over the walls and a flame pattern along the ground, an almost gray carpet with a purple streak crossing the room to end at the bed, which was an almost oval shape with something at its head which resembled a cloak being pulled up with a red gem. Also in the room was a triangular bookcase in one of the walls with a statue of an eerie-looking raven with red eyes on it, with a strange stand that had a statue of 2 theatrical masks on it as well, an old-fashioned globe at the wall opposite the bookcase. Near to him, the blonde noticed a window that took up most of the wall with dark drapes pulled over it, a long dresser lays to his other side, with a hand mirror laid atop it with a golden cup near it, and a mirror on the wall behind it, all beside another bookcase which lay inside the wall itself. Okay. I have to say this is by far weirder than even Jinx's room, and she likes unicorns, Naruto said mostly to himself, then noticed that Raven was floating off the ground before him, her hood over her head and legs folded into a lotus position, making him blink and reach up to rub the back of his neck. Did something fun happen while I was out? He questioned, only to have Raven roll her eyes, then give him a dull glare. No, she said flatly, making the thief snap his fingers comically. Too bad, he then said while shaking his head, and Raven rolled her eyes once more. So what brings me here? Karasu? He questioned with a grin, seeing the girl tilt her head with a confused look on her face. Damn, she looked really cute when she was confused like that. Kara who? She questioned, making the masked blonde snicker into his hand. Karesu. Raven, he said, and the girl made an O with her mouth before returning to her normal blank look. You're here because I have a few questions which don't involve the other titans and only you can answer them, the girl told him, making the thief shrug his shoulders before leaning back with his arms crossed under his head and awaiting her questions. Your strange ability to control the elements. Where did you learn it? She questioned, making Naruto twitch under his mask, and remained ever thankful for the mask covering it from view. Sorry, that's a little too personal. Can't have just anyone figuring out how I do my tricks now, can I? Naruto quipped, making the blue-cloaked girl frown before then shrugging her shoulders. Alright then, who was that guy with the sword? You seem to know him. She questioned, then stated, and Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerous beneath his mask. He's my problem. You and the other kids should stay out of his way or he'll barbecue you. Just leave him, and any of his friends, to me, Naruto said darkly, and Raven twitched before narrowing her own eyes on the black-clad thief. This is our city. If someone's a threat to it, we deserve to know who he is and what he can do, she said flatly, and Naruto grumbled under his breath before then crossing his arms. Name, Uchiha Sasuke, elemental alignment, fire and lightning, age 17, special abilities, Sharingan. Known jutsus, Chidori, Chidori Nagashi, Raikiri, Kijoshi no Jutsu, Ayatsuto no Jutsu, Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, Naonuk no Jutsu, Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu, Katan, Gakake no Jutsu, Ryuka no Jutsu, Shinai Jashu. Sharingan Safusha Sanatachi, Shunshin no Jutsu, Naonuk no Jutsu, Kawamari no Jutsu, and Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto listed with a hidden smirk, trying desperately not to laugh upon seeing Raven with an absolutely priceless look on her face. Huh? She questioned intelligently, and the laughter finally came in the form of snickers from the black-clad thief. If you want to know what he can do from that list, then you might want to look up some Japanese, Naruto told the girl, who glared at him angrily. What? You said you wanted to know what all he could do, you never said in what language I should tell you in. Naruto quipped humorously while wagging a finger, and the girl grunted before then crossing her arms and glaring at him. Then what about that demonic aura you had? She questioned, Naruto's eyes widened dramatically at her words, thankfully concealed. When I pulled you out of the water, your suit had some minor damage. Only a demonic aura seemed to seep into it, then fix it. Why do you have that? She explained, and Naruto blinked. Did that mean Kyuubi's healing chakra could also fix his suit as well as his body? Neat. That's Private Miss Blue Boots. Unless you want me asking how you know it's a demonic aura, Naruto said, then threatened simply, and Raven frowned once more before nodding her head. She'd rather not have the criminal world know how she knew about demonic auras, thank you. Now is that all you wanted to know? He then questioned with a frown, and Raven sighed. One last question. Why did you save me? She questioned, and Naruto was silent for a few seconds. What the hell are you talking about? And in case you've forgotten, I beat the hell out of you kids earlier, the thief said smoothly, and Raven frowned once more, making Naruto grit his teeth, wondering what he did to deserve this. Alright geese, calm down. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a villain, I'm just a thief. A kind of gray to the black and white of you kids' world, if you want to call me something fancy. The only thing I'm interested in is doing what I want, nothing else, and especially not killing you, Naruto told the girl plainly, and Raven frowned once more. That still doesn't explain why you saved me. If you really only cared about yourself, you would have let that. Sasuke? She started, then questioned, and Naruto nodded his head to the girl. You would have let him ram that lightning attack straight through me and then taken him out permanently, thus killing two birds with one stone, she said flatly, making Naruto twitch before letting out a sigh. Geese, okay, the reason I saved you was because I don't like seeing people, girl in particular, die right in front of me, he said simply, and Raven raised a brow. I watched as my mother was murdered right in front of me at 8 freaking years old. How the hell would you react? He asked darkly, eyes narrowed, and Raven winced before looking to the side. Sorry, she offered with a softer, regretful tone, and Naruto sighed before stretching his aching muscles and then rolling off the girl's bed to stand up. So, what now? He then asked, and Raven lifted a hand, black energy covering the limb as she waved, making the window of her room open up, confusing Naruto as he turned towards her with a raised brow under his mask. Now we're even. I made sure no one else knew about you while you recuperated. So I don't owe you for saving me. I don't like owing people favors, so just go, she said while crossing her arms and looking to the side with a frown. Naruto himself blinked before smiling behind his mask and shaking his head with a chuckle. We're not even, he said, and Raven turned sharply with a raised brow towards him. Sasuke. He's my responsibility, and he killed a lot of good people the other day. Until I get him back, we're not even, not by a long shot. Naruto then jumped out of the window and smirked to himself. Later. Karasu-chan. He thought to himself while using his teleportation device, leaving Raven to look out her window before closing it once more. I wonder if I should have told him he was unconscious for 4 straight days? Raven questioned of herself, then shrugged with a diabolic smirk on her lips. He'll figure it out eventually, she then said while walking out of the room and down a hall to a pair of double doors which she entered into. Within showed the Titan's main room, everyone besides herself present. Starfire was attempting to cook something once more, Robin was leaning near a computer with a frown on his face, Cyborg was sitting down next to BB who was playing a game with what looked like Cyborg Ninja in it. X just left, Raven commented, and Robin's frown deepened. While an eye twitched under his mask, Starfire seemed to cease stirring whatever concoction she had whipped up, and Cyborg turned to her from his seat on the couch. You get the info, Ray? Cyborg questioned, and Raven formed a ball of energy before pulling a recording device from it, then levitated said device to Cyborg. It's in some other language, he said Japanese, so you should have that run through the translator first. Raven told the titanium teen, who simply nodded his head, then walked to a couple of doors at the side of the room and out of sight, while Robin grumbled under his breath angrily from his spot near the computer consoles. I still say we should have locked him up. The Titan's leader grumbled out loud angrily, only for Raven to frown towards him. If we did that, we wouldn't have gotten anything from him about this Sasuke character. Subterfuge was needed for getting anything out of him, Robin. Raven told the boy wonder, who merely grumbled to himself angrily. And in case you've already forgotten, Robin, we don't have any legal reason to hold X captive. 1. LexCorp has disavowed any knowledge of the Xenothium scanner. 2. The company who had the Xenothium is keeping it under wraps to keep from having a political backlash due to the illegal and dangerous properties of Xenothium, or we can't legally arrest him even if we want to, Robin. Raven said with a shrug, and Robin growled angrily to himself, wondering why politics had to get in the way of justice yet again. Besides that, he may be a thief, but he's also saved my life, twice now. And I might add yours, Starfire's, Cyborg's, and Beast Boy's. Unfortunately, we all owed him one. And letting him go was the least we could do, Raven said flatly, annoying Robin further, while Starfire nodded her head from the kitchen area. This is true, friend Robin. Without the Red X, we would not have been able to defeat the Chong person. Starfire's words only served to annoy Robin more. He didn't like owing a criminal anything. At least Raven's plan had given them a clean slate. Wait. Raven, did you say X knows Japanese? Beast Boy questioned, finally contributing to the conversation, turning from the game he had been playing and looking to Raven, who nodded her head. Wow. I wonder if he's really a ninja or something. That would be so sweet. BB wondered aloud, then said, and Robin frowned to himself before taking a thoughtful expression and pondering over that idea. I've dealt with a ninja before, BB. They're stealthy and crafty, but X wasn't the same as the one I met. The boy wonder said, and BB looked at Robin with a clueless expression. The ninja I fought was cold and ruthless, yet just as skilled. X seems more laid back in battle. I think he might have ninjutsu training, but doesn't exactly follow the code to the letter. Robin mused more to himself than anything, while BB just shrugged his shoulders before returning to his game. Seemingly forgot Raven's side, then made her way out of the room and headed for the roof. She really needed to meditate. X was just so, she couldn't place it, but something about him felt familiar, and he really managed to annoy her with all the comments and quips. Naruto's apartment. Damn it! Jinx grumbled as she worriedly paced back and forth in Naruto's apartment, biting one of her fingernails. Where is he? She demanded of no one while throwing her arms to the air, then rubbed the top of her head. She stopped, however, and when she heard some rustling, only to twitch, seeing Gizmo and Mammoth were now running around in Naruto's things, primarily the stuff he had in his duffel bag. Hey Giz, check it out! Mammoth suddenly called out, and Gizmo looked over the big guy's shoulder. In the gargantuan teen's hands was a picture of a younger Naruto being hugged by a woman with long blood-colored hair and golden yellow eyes. You think this might be Temp's mom? Mammoth questioned, and Jinx looked over the redhead's shoulder as well. Who else do you think it is, Gak Face? His freaking sister! The tiny terror mocked loudly and Mammoth glared at the green-wearing boy while Jinx looked into the bag and grabbed a different picture, this one having a blonde-haired man with blue eyes who looked almost exactly like Tempest holding the same red-haired woman. "This must be his dad," she said softly, and Mammoth and Gizmo both looked, only to gawk. "Wow! Is Tempest a clone of his dad or what?" Gizmo questioned, and Jinx snorted. "Tempest's eyes aren't as feral as his father's. He has his mother's eye shape but his dad's eye color. He also has his mother's nose and those whiskers aren't his dad's. But they don't look like they come from his mom. Maybe he got into an accident or something," Jinx said thoughtfully, and both Gizmo and Mammoth snickered at the girl's words. Stopping, the girl looked at the two with a confused stare, before asking them a simple question. "What? Do you have a crush on Temp or what? 'Cause that seems to be a little too much info for his friend to have on his appearance," Gizmo said with a grin, and Jinx blushed before twitching as the two boys fell over laughing loudly. "Oh, shut and grow up!" the girl exclaimed, then put the two pictures back into Naruto's bag before grabbing another one, and her eyes widened. "That's him!" she then exclaimed while looking at a picture of the Rookie 9, with their senseis outside of the Konoha Ninja Academy. However, Jinx was looking at Sasuke in particular, and then looked to her two friends. "This is the guy who was offing all those cops," she stated, and both Mammoth and Gizmo looked at the picture, and at the boy in the picture. "Ah, he doesn't look so tough," Mammoth said, and Gizmo nodded his head before looking at the young Naruto and snickering into his hands. "TCH, look at Tempest! He looks like he'd be related to Beast-Strip with that goofy smile on his face," Gizmo said loudly before falling over laughing, Jinx merely glaring at the tiny terror for the unneeded crack at Naruto. "Yeah, it's weird how I used to act like the green bean, huh?" came the said boy's voice from behind the group, who all cursed at the same time before looking behind their shoulders to see Naruto sitting on his couch looking at them with his arms crossed over his chest. The blonde-haired boy then reached up to his head and pressed into the plates over his ears, revealing a pair of joints on his jaw, pushing the skull portion up to reveal the visor beneath it, and then pulled the lower jaw downward into a hanging position while pushing the visor upward and removing the mask completely. "Why is it so hard to remove that?" Jinx asked after a brief silence, and Naruto and Gizmo both grinned to one another. "If it wasn't made in this way, anyone could get it off," they both said, and Jinx slapped her face. Why hadn't any of the other heroes or villains thought of that? "So who's that black-haired twerp?" Mammoth questioned, and Naruto's grin faded into a serious expression. "My problem, that's who. He and a couple other fuckheads were sent by my home village to drag me back," he said with a frown, and Jinx blinked before frowning slightly and looking at Naruto. "You're a Rouge Ninja, then?" she questioned with air quotes, and the blonde-haired boy, as well as Mammoth and Gizmo, all looked at her strangely, making her blush. "Cheshire's a ninja. She said they used to have all kinds of ninja like that back when they were allied to shoguns and such. Not so much anymore," Jinx explained, then shrugged, making Naruto roll his eyes. "Yeah, well, I am one, and they're the Bakas my village sent after me. Probably by Bachan to drag my ass back to that shithole village," Naruto said with a frown, and Mammoth grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Heh, I'd like to see any loser try to drag my buddy anywhere with me around," he said menacingly, and Naruto looked at him strangely. "We're still friends? Even after I betrayed you guys and blew up the academy?" Naruto questioned, and Gizmo held his stomach and started laughing loudly. "That was you?" he asked loudly, and Naruto nodded his head, then watched as Gizmo fell to the ground laughing. "Oh, that was priceless! Why didn't you invite me to help with that? I've only dreamed of blowing a school up like that," he said while continuing to laugh, and Mammoth slapped Naruto on the back, knocking the boy forward some from the force. "Man, if I held a grudge against everyone who's either tried to blow me up, trip me into some goop, beat the hell out of me, or even set me on fire, I wouldn't have any friends at all," Mammoth then said, making his three friends look at him strangely. "Jinx pushed me into the goop, Gizmo blew me up, Seymour set me on fire, and Private Hive tried to beat me up," Mammoth then listed, making Naruto look at Gizmo and Jinx with a raised brow, while both of the other Troika members were whistling innocently. "Okay. Besides the fact that your best friends all tried to hurt you in some way, shape, or form, why aren't you mad? Naruto then asked with a confused expression and rubbing the back of his neck, making Gizmo snort. Jinx told us about brother blood, hate to say it, but I'm with you. I don't want anyone poking around inside my skull. The pint-sized terror growled out with Mammoth nodding his head with a frown. Only difference is we actually waited until we graduated to get out of there. Now the hive bought us a place to stay. I've also been making a block for his psychic powers so we won't have to worry about him trying to control us. Gizmo said with an evil grin, wringing his hands while imagining the lab he was going to build, and the numerous insidious devices that it would produce. And seeing as we are still friends, want to stay with us? Jinx offered with a shrug, and Naruto leaned back, took a thoughtful expression, then smirked. Stay with my friends in some secret hideout where no one will find me, or stay here and pay rent, while eventually Sasuke and the others will take their heads out of their asses long enough to look for my alias. Nah, I think I'll crash with you guys. Naruto said sarcastically, then stated with a grin as he got up and then went around the room gathering his things and stuffing them into his duffel bag. After that, the blonde retrieved his mask and replaced it over his head and face, before then opening his window and motioning for the others to go out first. Why are we using the window? The door is over here. Jinx questioned, then stated with a wave to the mentioned portal, and Naruto slapped his masked face with an annoyed scowl under his mask. Because if people saw us walking out together, don't you think they just might notice 4 wanted criminals all leaving an apartment rented by someone? The blonde asked with an annoyed tone, and Jinx blushed slightly before exiting through the window, Gizmo following with Naruto behind them, telling Mammoth to go out the door seeing as he was too big for the window. Mammoth grumbled under his breath about bossy blondes before then heading out of the room and up to the roof so he wouldn't be seen either. The group came back together on the roof, with Naruto looking to the troika. Where's this base located, Giz? Naruto questioned, and Gizmo rubbed his head. Outskirts of town on the east side, beside that stupid billboard with the Titans on it, he said, and Naruto rolled his eyes at the vague description before placing a hand on Jinx's shoulder, Gizmo placing one on her other shoulder and one of Mammoth's. What are you? Jinx started, then felt like her stomach was dragged from her body and out her throat somehow. She noticed a shimmering of light around them, then that everything seemed to blur, and suddenly they stood before a large 3-story building that looked like the one that Brother Blood had set up for them. Looking around, her eyes widened, realizing it was the one Brother Blood set up for them. Coming? Naruto quipped, breaking Jinx from her shock as she saw him and the other 2 troika boys walking into the building. The pink-haired girl huffed before rushing after the boys with an annoyed look in her eyes. Why were all men so impatient? Seeing the inside of the old warehouse made Naruto sigh. It was a complete wreck. Hell, half of the place had collapsed in on itself, no less. Arg! They stuck us with a burnout lair of all things! Gizmo shouted, and Naruto looked at him strangely. A burnout lair is a hideout the hive gives to graduates with little skill and no talent for being a villain. It's a place more for hired muscle than anything else. Jinx explained, and Naruto could see the anger in her eyes plain as day while Mammoth lifted up a large metal beam, only to find a familiar face sleeping on a couch in the center of the room and snoring lightly. See more? Naruto questioned, and the said boy shook his head and sat up, then stretched out his arms and looked at the group groggily before waving once. Hey guys! Brother Blood said me and a couple others should crash with y'all for a while. The one-eyed teen explained before then laying back down and going back to sleep while Mammoth grunted and tossed the metal beam to the side. Wait! What others? Naruto questioned, and Kid Wicked appeared before then and raised a hand in a simple hello. Oh. Well, that's not so bad. Naruto said, only for Kid to move, Mammoth doing the same as Private Hive landed before him, making the black-clad thief slap his face. Private Hive reporting for duty, sir. The shield-wielding teen said with a salute directed to Naruto, who sighed and looked to Jinx, who looked about as thrilled as he did about their new situation. Oh great! The walking disaster area. Just what we need to fix this place. Naruto grumbled sarcastically, then looked around and sighed before making a familiar T-shaped seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu! He exclaimed, and numerous copies of him appeared in many plumes of smoke, surprising those in the room, save the sleeping Seymour. Alright guys, I want the first half of you to check this place out for salvageable parts, the rest of you head out and do your best to fix up the place. Take Mammoth and Private Hive with you. Naruto ordered, and the private saluted to him once more before walking off with Mammoth and several dozen clones. What about the rest of us? Jinx questioned, and Naruto took a thoughtful expression. Gizmo, can you make one of those solid hologram rooms they used at the hive for training? The thief questioned of his tiny friend, who snorted. Yeah, but what the hell do you need one of those for? You're already tough enough to take out the Titans in 5 minutes flat. The little boy questioned, then exclaimed with a grin, and Naruto frowned to himself. I'm rusty. If I were at my peak, I wouldn't have needed those 5 minutes to take the Titans down, nor would I have passed out from a simple Utama Rasengan. I need to get back up to speed in case I have another run-in with Sasuke or any of the others. Naruto replied, then took a thoughtful expression. Jinx, you and Kid here are going to scout out the building and make a detailed list of all entrances and exits. That includes vents and anything else you might use on a job if you were going to sneak in here. When you have that, I'll work on getting our security up to my standards, Naruto said, and Jinx frowned, crossing her arms and then narrowing her eyes on Naruto. And what exactly are your standards? She asked, and Naruto chuckled lightly. By the time I'm done, no one will ever be able to get in here without us knowing it long before they realize it, Naruto answered, and Jinx actually smirked before nodding her head. Finally, someone who takes things seriously around here, she said mostly to herself, and Naruto shrugged. Don't get too used to it. I'm just making sure we're secure from my old friends. After I'm sure we're all safe, I'll let the guys slack off some. With that, Naruto vanished off into the building, making Jinx huff and Kid roll his eyes. Come on, Kid, His Highness the Prince of all Thieves gave us a job to do. I'll check the vents and halls, you deal with the entrances. Jinx grumbled while grabbing Kid by his cloak and pulled him with her so they could get their own assigned tasks done with. At that moment, Seymour raised his head and looked around. Seeing no one around her, scratched his head and yawned. Why do I feel like I just missed something really important? He questioned of no one before shrugging his shoulders, laid his head back down, and fell asleep once more, snoring lightly on the couch. Later, Jinx was crawling through an air vent, grumbling under her breath every now and again, while also noting it was way too big. Who in the hell made these things so damn big anyways? I'll probably never know the answer to that question. She mumbled under her breath, then pushed the grate for this vent out, and pulled herself into one of the still demolished sections of the base, grunting and then leaning back to allow her spine to pop lightly. Why didn't Temp do this himself? He's crawled through enough vents to be a master of it. Jinx grumbled to herself, then walked down the halls, looking up and frowning, making a note that they need to add some security cameras to this hallway. And the next one. And the next. Arg. Why in Christ's name did we get stuck with a fucking burnout lair for an HQ? We were the best damn students in the hive. Jinx shouted angrily, then crossed her arms with a huff, cursing Brother Blood under her breath as she then walked down and turned into the next hall. The pink-haired girl wouldn't say it out loud, but she was relieved that Tempest or Red X or whatever the hell he was calling himself was there to help them whip this place into semi-decent shape. Not only that, but from their experience with him in the past, the teen was an excellent leader, constantly bettering himself, and those around him as best he could, sort of like an anti-Robin, as some put it. For another thing, she was glad he was here so she would have someone at least partly intelligent to have a conversation with. Gizmo was a foul-mouthed, annoying little midget. Mammoth, while nice and kind of like an older brother, was still on the dim side. Private, well, besides having a hard head and military background, all she knew was that he supposedly slept with a teddy bear. Kid never spoke unless it was to Angel, and even then that was rare, and Seymour. He had a crush on her, and yet constantly seemed to miss anything important. How he did that she would never know. However, upon reminding herself of Tempest, or was it Red X, she inwardly gave up that, and pulled a notepad from a pocket on her skirt, and wrote down what she had found about the halls and the vents. She made notes about cameras and sensors they should add around the base, while also mentioning the size of the air vents and possible ways of rectifying this without any serious overhauls to the entire place. Tapping her chin with the pencil she brought with her lightly, she also mentioned some other facts, such as the fact that only one vent led outside while the others seemed to draw from it. As Jinx continued down the hall with the paper, she blinked upon hearing the sounds of a fight. Putting the notepad up, the pink-haired girl slowly made her way towards the sounds, only to find Naruto, sans his mask and the extra armor/padding of his suit, and fighting at least a dozen of his clones in the massive room near the center of the base on the first floor. Walking in, Jinx sees the blonde is using his sword, as are his clones, only the one, whom she assumes is the original, is easily knocking them all back before swiping and sending 5 of the clones into plumes of smoke. Watching with a fascinated expression, Jinx sees Naruto then duck under one clone before backhanding the next, then jump over another with a kick to a clone behind it. Naruto then swings his sword, quickly slicing another clone in half before then flipping into the air and stabbing down on another clone, leaving only the original and the final clone left. Smirking as he makes a classic "come on" gesture with one hand to the final clone. The clone doesn't take the bait, however, and slowly both of the Narutos circle one another, only to quickly lunge forward, their blades moving in a single arc that appeared as though it was a mere flash of light. The clone disappeared in a plume of smoke, and Naruto fell to one knee, panting heavily, then wiping his brow. "Man, what a workout, right, Jinx?" Naruto said, then questioned, looking towards the pink-haired girl with his trademarked foxy grin and actually making the pink on her cheeks brighten. "How? Why? If this is you weak, you must be like a god at full strength," Jinx said flatly, and Naruto snorted before flipping back to his feet and then rolling his shoulders around to loosen the stiff muscles. "Nah. I'm rusty, not weak. My physical and elemental abilities have never been better. It's just I've been neglecting my chakra control training for a while now. So basically, my chakra-based skills use up more chakra and are a tad bit more erratic than they are supposed to be," Naruto said with a thoughtful expression before walking over to Jinx and looking the girl in the eyes. "Need something?" he questioned, and Jinx blushed once more before she quickly nodded her head and handed him her notepad. Taking the object, Naruto turned from Jinx, flipping through several pages and frowning in thought, though personally thought Jinx herself could get this place in shape from the suggestions she left. "Hey, Tempest," Jinx then said, and Naruto turned his head towards her only to duck as she tried to kick him in the head, now grinning. "Would you mind having a light spar?" she quipped, and Naruto blinked before flipping backwards several times to a makeshift table formed from slabs of dislodged wall. His armor and helmet resting on it, he put the notepad down, then looked at Jinx with a grin. "Come on!" Naruto exclaimed while lunging at the pink-haired girl, spinning into a roundhouse kick. Jinx seemed to see this, however, and fell back. Using her legs, she bent along the ground, ducking under the kick, then kicked the blonde in the back. Naruto flew forward, only to flip himself in midair, then flipped to his feet facing Jinx with a grin as he saw the girl get back to her own. "Geese, you're one seriously flexible chick, Jinx," Naruto then said, and Jinx grinned once more, and then jumped forward into several forward flips before planting both feet into Naruto's chest. The blonde expected something like this, however, and took hold of her legs, then spun on his heel and tossed the girl towards a wall. However, the pink pixie simply flipped in midair, her feet hitting the wall before she then flipped off the wall and into a handstand. The girl then spun and flipped into the air at the same time, landing in a pose facing Naruto with a catty grin. "What do you think?" the girl quipped, and Naruto took a mock thoughtful expression on his face, even going as far as cupping his chin with one hand. "Well, you stuck your dismount, not only that, but you showed some real flexibility there. So I give you a 10. Naruto said with a grin, and Jinx smirked, then lunged forward once more, kicking at the blonde's head once more as he moved back, then grabbed her leg at her next kick. "You know I can see your panties when you kick at me, right?" the blonde then asked, causing Jinx to nearly match her hair and eyes before he then kicked her leg out from under her and spun her in midair, only for her to land on her hands and feet. Was it him, or was she really part cat? "Hey! Cheap shot, I call foul!" Jinx shouted at Naruto, who scratched one cheek before grinning down at the girl. "Nope. We're criminals, who needs rules?" he then said, and Jinx narrowed her eyes, and then used several flips to kick Naruto in the face, sending him flying back. Naruto hit and skid along the ground for a short while, before then hitting the wall, groaning and sitting up to glare at Jinx. Okay, now the kid gloves are coming off, Naruto growled before lunging forward into a roundhouse kick, only for Jinx to kick at the same time and both to spin back from their momentum. Naruto and Jinx both landed and flipped from a handstand to stand back to back. They both then quickly turned, Naruto lunging at the pink-haired girl with a roundhouse punch, which Jinx ducked under, then tried to counter with a rising kick. Naruto countered this with his own leg, however, then grabbed the front of Jinx's outfit. Jinx then rolled them both back and they ended up with Jinx straddling the blonde and pinning him down at the waist. "Ha, got you!" she said with a grin, only to notice a smirk on Naruto's face. Looking down, the pink-haired girl noticed that Naruto had at some point formed a Rasengan, and now had it aimed right at her stomach, and with his other arm holding her shirt she was unable to move. "Now then, who's got whom, missy?" he quipped with a smirk, and Jinx glared at the blonde-haired boy angrily. "Shut up, it wasn't even a real fight," the girl grumbled, and Naruto snickered. "Yeah, and Cheshire didn't lose to me because of a wardrobe malfunction," Naruto quipped, and Jinx twitched slightly before glaring at the blonde once more. "You caused the damn malfunction!" she shouted, and Naruto shrugged without letting the Rasengan go. "That's what we call a technicality, my dear Jinx," Naruto quipped, and Jinx frowned, slowly moving so she was no longer straddling the blonde's waist. "You know, we're lucky no one can see this, or they might start to get ideas about us," Naruto then said while absorbing the chakra from the Rasengan back into his body. Jinx, at hearing this, blinked, then did turn the color to match her hair and eyes, before glaring at the blonde angrily. "Yeah, like you holding my shirt would have helped anything," she quipped while crossing her arms, and Naruto took a thoughtful expression once more. "No, it wouldn't, good point," he conceded while then flipping back to his feet and dusting himself off. Jinx, getting back to her own feet, straightened out her own clothes before walking over to Naruto. "What?" the blonde asked, and Jinx poked him in the chest. "This little spar is never mentioned to anyone," she stated simply, and Naruto blinked before nodding his head slowly. "Good," Jinx said with a nod, and before Naruto could say anything witty or sarcastic, the girl jumped and wrapped her arms around his neck, planting a kiss on his lips, knocking him back and onto his ass before she finally released his lips. "Then we'll never need to mention that either," Jinx then said with a Cheshire cat grin before getting off the blonde once more and leaving the large room, leaving an utterly confused Naruto behind her. "What the hell was that about?" the blonde asked with an utterly confused expression on his face. Hell, for all his flirting, he never actually thought it'd be Jinx to jump him like that. "No, we won't be talking about that. Not for a good long while at least. But when we speak of this, I am going to find out why the hell you just kissed me like that. Or at least why you didn't let me enjoy it," the blonde thought to himself, snickering at the end, then shaking his head, walking back to the makeshift table to get his armor and gear as well as the notepad Jinx had filled with ideas. Stopping for a second as he looked at his helmet/mask skull-marked face, Naruto couldn't help a slight smirk that crossed his lips. "Heh. Ero-senin, I bet you're still looking out for me from beyond the grave, aren't you?" he thought while shaking his head, then chuckled lightly. "Why else would I have two different girls liking me, one jumping me with kisses and the other actually going out on a somewhat date with me?" Naruto thought with a smirk still plastered onto his face before shaking his head, then walked back towards his room. It had been one hell of a day, that's for sure. Jump City, California. It was Saturday evening. The Hive gang had been working on their new base for hours on end, with most of them having gone to bed. Naruto had, only to be awoken when his first batch of clones had dispelled a couple hours later. Thus the unofficial leader of the Hive gang had made another batch and let them get to work also, before then laying back and passing out once more. Once they had dispelled, Naruto had decided to get up and stay up, making yet another large batch of clones, which he assigned various tasks, most of which were simply finishing what the last batch couldn't. Naruto wiped his brow as he walked into the main room of the base, it being the only finished room in the entire place. The blonde-haired thief then sat back into the Hive's couch and cracked his neck, feeling the muscles give off numerous pops from the stress he had gathered. "Are we done yet?" Jinx asked tiredly with a slouch before falling onto the couch, slowly handing a notepad to Naruto. The blonde chuckled lightly, then felt his clones dispel, making the thief grimace from the influx of information as a result. Mammoth and Private should be down soon, he said simply while Jinx grumbled something ineligible. You okay? The blonde asked the girl, who reached out and grabbed onto a pillow, then snuggled into the pillow, looking like a cat, making Naruto's lips twitch at the sight. Never mind, he then said and looked at a nearby clock. Letting out a sigh, the blonde got back to his feet and went off into the hideout to pick out a room for himself so none of the others would bug him. Finally finding one of the finished rooms, Naruto pulled out an X-shuriken and then placed it onto the door, then slammed his fist into so it would dent the door, allowing it to stay. Smirking, Naruto walked into the room and placed his things down nearby. Stripping out of the X-suit, Naruto pulled on his civilian clothing. Raven said Saturday, so I might as well get there a bit early, Naruto said to himself while putting his bucket hat over his head, shadowing his eyes before then brushing his hair down to cover his whisker marks, and nodded. Good to go, he said with a grin and walked out of the room, whistling to himself as he did. Naruto walked into a dark cafe, the same cafe that Raven had told him to meet her. Scratching the length of his nose, the blonde made his way inside and looked around for the violet-haired girl. You're early, came said girl's monotone as a shadow formed beside her, and the girl rose up out of the ground to stand next to him. Yeah, well, a former teacher of mine was always late. I decided I don't like to be kept waiting and figured you wouldn't either, the blonde explained with a grin, and Raven nodded her head slowly before walking over to a table in a dark corner of the room, Naruto trailing behind her. Naruto and the girl sat down at the same time, and the blonde looked around, seeing only a few patrons, all of which seemed to ignore them. They're used to me coming in. They pretty much just ignore me now and get on with their lives, Raven explained, and Naruto shrugged while then sitting back slightly, looking around the dim room, and noticed. Wait. That was Niji at the counter. Naruto blinked several times before shaking his head. What were the odds of him seeing Niji in a cafe? A waitress came over before they could start this little inquisition, as Naruto liked to think of it. They each made an order and the girl went off. So, what did you want to talk about? Naruto questioned, and Raven blinked before thinking it over. She hadn't really thought about that. She really just wanted to know how she felt like she could trust him. Frowning, the girl closed her eyes, concentrating on what to ask out of the numerous questions floating around in her head. For starters, where are you from? Raven asked, opening her eyes to meet his deep blue ones and making Naruto wince. That was one of the big ones he didn't want to answer, and really couldn't answer truthfully without sounding crazy. Also, asking this could tell her some more things about him, which he didn't want her to know. A small town outside Kyoto in Japan called Konoha. He lied easily, meeting her violet gaze without flinching. Yet still Raven could tell he was lying, but she didn't want to force anything out of him if he didn't want to talk about. It was his business, not hers after all, and this wasn't supposed to be an interrogation. She simply nodded to his lie before trying to decide on what her next question should be. Okay, how long have you been in Jump City? That was one thing she really needed to know about him. After all, she had been in the city for only 2 years now. The likelihood of having met him on Azarath was slim to none, so it was possible she met him during that time. The blonde before her leaned back at this question. Truthfully, all it would tell her was when he got to town, and that wasn't really anything dangerous. So Naruto decided he was going to tell the truth on this one. I've lived in town for about a year by now. And before you ask, I had to leave home because of some difficulties in the village. For some strange reason, the blonde-haired Nukenin felt like both Anko and Ibiki were interrogating him, and that was not a feeling he liked one bit. The answer to her last question was a little confusing to her at first. At least the reason for him to leave his home was. Why would he leave because of difficulties? No, what difficulties would force someone to leave his home? Maybe I should ask about that, she thought to herself before speaking her question to the boy. What kind of difficulties would make you leave? Oddly, this sounded a bit like the stories she had given the other Titans when she had first met them. To the blonde in front of her took a thoughtful expression at this, contemplating what to say to the girl. Sure, he could lie, but that would probably be a bad idea. She hadn't called him out on anything yet, but she was a telepath, so he decided he'd tell a half-truth this time around. Before he could start, a waitress brought both Naruto and Raven their orders: herbal tea for Raven, and green tea for the resident blonde. Well, for starters, I wasn't really well liked around there, mostly because of something that my dad did before I was born, which also got him killed. My mom died when I was still growing up, and my legal guardian decided to hide the fact that she was murdered from me along with the inheritance I was supposed to get from both of them. Most of my early years I played a lot of pranks on people, the very influential ones around the village mostly, mainly because they deserved it. Naruto said, then took a drink from his green tea, sipping and wetting his mouth before then continuing. But the big nudge that got me to leave was when I caught my girlfriend sleeping with my best friend. If I hadn't have left, I'm pretty sure I would have killed both of them. So I decided I'd run away, taking only what I needed, along with a few scrolls and books about stuff like medicine and different styles of fighting. I even think some are written about ancient lore. Somehow, it felt good to be talking about this to someone. Well, he supposed everyone had to get something off his or her chest every now and again. Though it did help that he also felt a strange type of kinship for the gray-skinned girl. He smirked at that thought before taking another sip of his green tea and leaning back. You actually know how to fight? Raven asked him, not really surprised by that fact, as it seemed everyone knew how to fight nowadays. No, she was more surprised that from the sounds of it, he was practically an orphan from birth. And unless he was exaggerating, which she doubted, he was also not very well liked from where he was originally from. That she could easily relate to, seeing as the monks of Azarath were the only ones who didn't treat her like a hellspawn, though her mother seemed to ignore her most of the time. He was somewhat like she was in some regards, but what exactly did his father do for that dislike to be passed to the young man before her now? Summon a demon or something? Yeah, my mom taught me a lot about defending myself before she passed. After that, the old fart that was watching me taught me some. But none of it was nearly as useful as what my mom taught me. Even if he was named after a great ninja, I don't think he was that great a man. I don't really feel like talking about him, though, so can we move on now? The blonde questioned as he was starting to get a little uncomfortable, which Raven could tell. The girl decided to give him some reprieve from her inquiry on his past and ask about something else. What kind of people did you hang out with to not be bothered by me? I find it would be hard to hang out with anyone that would make you used to someone like me. Raven asked, then explained, expecting an answer that would be kind of strained. What she got was one of total truth, however, which was surprising. Oh man, let's see, 2 cousins who didn't really know each other too well, one of whom used to stalk me all the time. These 3 little kids who always thought of me as their leader or something. Then there was an egomaniacal emo with a group of fangirls I thought was my best friend. Then there was this really violent trio of siblings, the youngest of which was kind of a sociopath. A brunette girl that was almost completely obsessed with sharp, pointy things. A blonde-haired girl whose family was mostly shrinks, with her pink-haired bitch of a best friend. Naruto said before taking a quick breath of air to continue, leaving a slightly stunned Raven to listen. A quiet guy who loved bugs a lot. Then this guy who never seemed to go anywhere without his dog. A lazy kid who was actually a genius with his really big-boned food enthusiast friend. Not to mention a sadistic woman who loved snakes too much, a father and daughter who worked together in a little food stand. A bowl-haircut guy who loved to spar and his mini-me, a chain smoker, a red-eyed tease, and a very lazy, very late, very perverted, one-eyed sensei. That last one on that list, the blonde had almost hissed out with anger, before taking his last sip and finishing his green tea. Raven was almost reminded of the silver-haired guy in the bookstore by that last one, but for some reason couldn't really tell. She then looked up at the clock on the wall behind the counter, only to notice that it was now past 10. She needed to get back to the tower before the others started to get really worried. Or come looking for her, and say she had a boyfriend. Just as she was about to leave, the door to the cafe opened to show Cyborg and Beast Boy both standing there, looking around the room for her. They were surprised to see her sitting there with a kid their age in a bucket hat and red t-shirt. Hell, they were surprised to see her sitting there with anyone, but the fact that it was a guy, and she was looking at them wide-eyed made them start to think. However, the blonde then stood up and looked at her friends with a smirk. before then turning back to her and speaking to her in a hushed yet amused tone. I got to get going, my roommates are expecting me back in another hour. If you got the time, I'll see you next week, Karasa-chan. With that, the blonde puts some money on the table and leaves through the front door. Wait a minute. Karasa-chan? Isn't that what X called me? The violet-haired girl thought to herself as she watched the blonde leave. Hey, wait! She called out quickly, getting up to follow him out the door, only for it to look as if he had somehow disappeared completely. Raven. Was that your secret boyfriend or something? Came the amused voice of a certain metal man from behind the girl, as surprised as Bibi that she was in a cafe with some guy. She didn't answer his question, however. Instead, she summoned up a shadow and let it envelope her before it disappeared into the floor with her in it. She arrived at the tower quickly, and 10 minutes later, Raven was sitting on the couch reading a book and ignoring anyone around her, while Starfire was messing around in the kitchen yet again and Robin was flipping through the channels on the TV with a bored expression, when Cyborg and the Green Idiot finally walked in. Hey Star, guess what we saw? Beast Boy says with a wide grin on his face, getting the attention of the others save Raven, who twitches. If anyone had bothered to look at her, they'd have noticed that she was suddenly holding her book a little too tightly in her hands, and that she was somehow bending the hardback book's cover. What is it, friend Beast Boy? The orange-skinned alien girl asked without even looking at him, or the smirking half-bot at his side. The two guys near the door move in front of the TV. Before they give the victory sign to each other, making Raven slap his face wondering what stupid thing they're going to do next that will somehow anger Raven, with both hands and start dancing and chanting. Raven's got a boyfriend! Raven's got a boyfriend! Raven's got a yoch! They both scream at the same time as the blue-clothed girl whacks both of them on the head with her rather large book, using her powers to make it hurt them more. They look at her with wide and very scared eyes, as she seems to loom over their terrified forms. Her eyes, which are normally violet, seem to have a red on the border between her iris and sclera and was twitching wildly. He is not my boyfriend! She snapped at them angrily, before turning to leave, only to find her way blocked as Starfire suddenly embraces her in a bone-crushing hug. Why me? What the hell did I ever do to deserve this? Raven couldn't help but wonder to herself, as she could almost swear she heard her back start to crack while Starfire went on and on about how glorious it was that Raven had the boyfriend. Why did this have to happen to her whenever she was near a guy for a prolonged time outside of the tower? Especially seeing as he wasn't her boyfriend. HIve 5HQ. Naruto whistled lightly as he walked past the genetic scanner that the tiny terror, Gizmo, had set up the night before, so that the group wouldn't have to worry about anyone trying to use the front door at least. As soon as he walked in, it was to see the sight of both Mammoth and Private HIve asleep at a table across the room from him with their heads sideways and drools sliding out of their mouths and coating the table. Kid WYKKYD was asleep as well, only he was in front of the couch with his head leaning back against it. And last, Jinx was still asleep on the couch, snoring softly with her head tilted to one side. I really got to stop working these guys so hard. Maybe I'll give them a break tomorrow. Nah, they can take it. The blonde thinks to himself as he takes off his bucket hat and heads towards the room marked with a red X symbol on the front and rolls his eyes. Opening the door and sticking his head inside, Naruto sees a bed within, though is lacking any sheets or a pillow. So either someone was really bored while they were working, or Jinx was just trying to thank him for the rescue he'd managed the other night, and had set it up for him. Either way, I really got to remember to thank someone for this. He thinks to himself with a slight smile tilting the sides of his lips upwards, before then stretching with a yawn and getting out of his civvies and into something more comfortable. Once he has finished that, the blonde flips down onto the bare mattress of his bed and bounces once before crossing his arms behind his head and letting out a sigh. Titan's Tower. Starfire was not in a good mood, contrary to what most think. She has worries, and one of her biggest worries is for her sister Blackfire. The worry is due to the simple fact that the Centauri police for stealing a Centauri moon diamond had arrested the older girl. But according to a report sent to her from Gal 4, her sister is heading directly towards Earth once more. Sighing, the normally chipper girl floats around her room, trying to decide what to do. Should she tell her friends about Blackfire? No, this was her family, her problem. They shouldn't get involved with her sister when they all had other problems to deal with already. Shaking her head, Starfire floated over to the window and lay back. Eyes closed, she gave a smile when the sun hit her skin. The warm feeling she got was really just her body absorbing solar radiation and storing it for later use. But it still felt nice to the Tamaranian princess, all the same. A beeping from nearby alerted Starfire to something. Looking around, she spotted her Titan's communicator on her dresser and slowly went over and answered to see static. Hello, sister. The sister part was particularly sneered out, and Starfire sighed before trying her best to calm down. Be Blackfire, what do you need of me, sister? Starfire asked while cursing herself for the brief stuttering of her voice. You dead for one thing, sister dear. Blackfire replied offhandedly to her sister, who flinched at her sister's deadly tone. Please, Blackfire, we should not fight. I do not wish to fight my only sister, and… Starfire started to say only for Blackfire to interrupt her. What you want doesn't matter, Starfire. This is about what I want for a change, Blackfire said with an ominous tone, and Starfire listened to her sister. I'll give you 1 hour to meet me, Starfire. I'll be in the city. Don't bring your little friends. Unless you're a spineless moleworm, Blackfire stated, then said with a hint of humor. Only Starfire either didn't notice or chose not to care, and she frowned. I will find you, sister. I do not wish to hurt you, but I will not let you bring harm to another, the redhead said plainly, and heard a laugh from her older sister as the connection on the communicator went dead. Looking around, Starfire debated with speaking to her friends over this matter, then shook her head of the thought. Tamaranians dealt with Tamaranians, family dealt with family. It had always been that way throughout history on Tamaran, and Starfire wasn't going to break tradition. Walking over to her window, the alien girl lifted it open, then climbed into the windowsill before flying off into the city, seeking out her older twin sister. After a while of desperately trying and failing miserably to fall asleep, the boy just gave up and got back up. He really had way too much going on in his mind at the moment. He'd always had this problem when he was younger. Possibly why his dope self could never focus was due to too much going on in his head. And the only way he knew how to cure this was to work out his body to clear his mind. Normally, that would involve racing through the trees at speeds that would kill even the most skilled of ninja if they ran into something. Then again, he wasn't most ninja. That thought seemed to ring in the blonde's mind as he suddenly got a grin working its way over his face. Moving over to his closet, the blonde pulled out his X-suit and began to suit up. First the bodysuit came on, then the boots and glove attachments, then followed by the gauntlets, greaves, and belt. The blonde attached his shoulder guards and sword sheath next, then finally looked down at his helmet's masked eyes before opening it and pulling it over his head. Turning to see the reflection of his suit in the mirror, Naruto turned on the night vision, setting for his mask's vision, and then watched as his mask's eyes began to glow neon green like a ghost. Turning on his heel, Naruto stopped and checked that he had a full cache of gear on him, just a little precaution in case he ran into the kids. Then again, he'd be lucky if he did, as Robin could amuse him while giving him a decent taijutsu spar. The kid was great at taijutsu, Nuff said. Hands down, he was better than Lee with pure normal taijutsu. But if Lee broke out the gates or took of his leg weights, well, Robin would be paced. Shaking his head, Naruto walked outside his room and then set the lock on the door. In his defense, he did live with thieves. Several minutes later, he's running from rooftop to rooftop with images of a certain raven-haired girl running through his head. Why was he as comfortable around her as Gaara and Yujito had been for him? Memories of those names rushed into his head along with many memories of Konoha and his friends. He quite suddenly realized he missed all of it. Well, obviously not the lying, the betraying, the backstabbing, the going behind his back, or even the shitty-ass counsel, but he did miss his days with his friends. Well, maybe just slightly. Elsewhere, Starfire landed in the city on a roof. Looking around, she sighed. Her sister could be anywhere in the city. Starfire had already checked the first few places that her sister had visited last time she was on Earth, except the creepy rundown old warehouse. Smiling at her own cleverness, Starfire shot up into the air and then straight for the old building, Spotting a black dot on its roof, the girl landed and slid to a halt before Blackfire. The older Tamaranian was laying on her side with one hand on her head, and a sly smirk on her lips. "So glad you could make it," she said, though the sarcasm wasn't lost on Starfire this time. "Why are you doing this again, sister? Did the Centauri prison really teach you nothing at all?" Starfire questioned and saw a brief twitch from Blackfire. Why had she twitched? It wasn't irritation either, or Blackfire would have shown it full force on her. No, she was hiding something. "Why? Why am I doing this? Here's my reason, plain and simple, Starfire." Blackfire started, then lunged forward with a roar, spinning one leg out into a powerful roundhouse kick and knocking her off the roof. Quickly flying after her, Blackfire gripped Starfire by the throat while flying to the ground and slammed her down with a feral look in her eyes. "You ruined me life!" Blackfire roared while simultaneously lifting Starfire up, then reeling her left arm back as a violet star bolt in hand before she slammed it into Starfire, sending the younger redhead flying back into a wall with a loud scream of pain. Back with X. As the thief was still lost in thought, he was pulled out of his trip down memory lane as he heard someone start to scream loudly. "You ruined my life!" Following this proclamation was a dark blue light coming from a nearby alley, followed shortly by a loud high-pitched scream. He quickly stopped above the alley, and the blonde-haired shinobi looked down to see none other than the cutie, Starfire, being held up by her throat and to a wall by a girl who was floating in midair and looked almost like a duplicate of her. However, though they looked close enough alike to be twins, the black-haired girl had several dissimilarities as well. Starting out, she had black hair as opposed to black, with slanted eyes which had a white sclera and violet irises. Her skin was orange like Starfire's, marking her as a Tamaranian. Her shirt, skirt, and boots were all black, with the same metal collar, belt, and gauntlets as Starfire. But this other girl had what looked like jointed metal bands over all of her skin, bearing her fingers and her face. "Sister," Starfire squeaked out while gripping the other girl's wrist. "We only sent you back to prison because you stole that moon diamond. If you hadn't, we would not have had to." "This isn't about that fucking prison, princess!" The black-haired girl roared with a snarl, and Naruto blinked repeatedly, wondering what the hell was going on. "This is about you always getting your way. You always had everything. And I never did." Blackfire raged before twisting one heel and throwing Starfire into a wall. "I'm a calm secret, Starfire. I don't have much, and you always got everything I ever wanted," the Tamaranian exclaimed while confusing Naruto as he thought she was a Tamaranian. Starfire, on the other hand, was looking at Blackfire with a mix of shock and horror. "Sister. I didn't know, I mean." Starfire was slightly more afraid now. Calm secret, or black curse, in Earth English, was a rare genetic disorder on Tamaran. Its symptoms included black hair, violet eyes, never reaching to or above 6 feet tall, a very weak immune system, and no way to store solar energy for use of their powers. "Yes, Starfire, I'm a calm secret. And do you have any idea how bad it is in a Centauri prison?" Blackfire said, then demanded, and Starfire winced slightly. A Centauri prison was the nastiest, most brutal place you could ever be, and that wasn't even in the prison. The world was cold as ice, with the sun, that's light, barely reached it, making it a breeding ground for more germs than there ever was on Earth or Tamaran. Her sister could have died, being both powerless and very susceptible to the germs. "Sister, I really had not idea. I merely thought that you disliked training with our powers and—" Starfire started while getting to her feet, only to duck to the side when her sister kicked the lid of a trash can towards her. She was referring to when they were little. Whenever she would try and have her sister help her, Blackfire would go off and say she'd help her later. "But this isn't about that, hell, Starfire. No! This is about the fact you still get everything. I've had to fight tooth and nail just to survive. I had to hire an alien scientist to make this suit just so I could fight like a Tamaranian while learning martial arts to protect myself." Blackfire said, then grabbed Starfire by then shirt and tossed her over her shoulder into a metal grate, Naruto narrowing his eyes and leaning forward. "This is about getting you back for all the crap I've had to put up with that you never had to deal with. My life's been a living hell, so why not make yours the same?" Blackfire exclaimed before lunging at Starfire once more, and Naruto had enough of this and lunged down. Blackfire suddenly finds Naruto in front of her, her fist in his clenched fist as his masked eyes shift from glowing neon green to a burning fiery red. Don't mean to break up this sibling rivalry, babe, but the cutie there looks like she needs a bit of a break before you continue, Naruto says in a firm tone before lashing out with a palm strike to Blackfire's chest, sending her flying back. What the fuck? Who in the nebula are you? The black-haired girl demands while Naruto raises a brow at the nebular part, but decides it must be alien slang. Looking at the girl, however, Naruto has a flashback of him and Sasuke back at the Valley of the End, how he was teetering on the edge of sanity back then as well. This girl, however, seems to have had a rough life. Her own anger and pain is clouding her judgment, so while similar to Sasuke, he knows she can still be saved. Nobody to someone like you, just a shinobi, Naruto says simply before quickly drawing his sword and lunging forward, his vertical slash missing her by a fraction of an inch as she flips into the air. Narrowing his eyes, the blonde ex-ninja then flips onto the building and runs on the side of it, jumping into a spinning slash, which Blackfire uses her gauntlets to block, surprising the blonde as he never knew just how tough those damn gauntlets they wore actually were. Not bad, huh? It's made from a flexible, but durable metal, 20 times more effective than steel. It's also one of the rarest ores in the known galaxy, Blackfire said before throwing her arms forward, sending Naruto back, but the teen flipped in midair and landed in a crouch on the side of the building. I must say, I didn't know that. Think you could get me some, babe? Naruto questioned with a sly smirk and was greatly surprised when the girl smirked back. She looked thoughtful before looking down with a smile. Maybe if you be good and move so I can get rid of Starfire over there, she offered, and Naruto blinked several times. Well, damn, a girl who flirts back. Sorry, babe, she may not be my type, but the cutie's too damn cute to just let you hurt her, the blonde said with a shrug, seeing Blackfire frown before charging a dark bolt in both hands and lunging at the masked blonde. Then I'll just have to make you get out of my way then, Blackfire roared before lunging at the masked teen, slamming her fist into the building, causing a large chunk to fall towards Naruto. Ah shit, the blonde thought before teleporting out of the way into the roof. Taking a second to catch his breath, Naruto finds the girl's fist connecting with his face and sending him skidding back. Alright, no more Mr. Nice Guy, Naruto then thought to himself before flipping back to his feet and swinging his sword into its sheath. Taking a breath, the blonde then formed into a fighting stance and saw Blackfire smirk. I am a master of over 5 martial arts. Do you honestly think you can stop me with your bare hands if a sword wouldn't cut it? Blackfire questions, and the spikes on Naruto's knuckles come from his gauntlets, both those and his greaves beginning to glow as electricity arched across them. Maybe not bare-handed, babe, but I think these will do nicely, Naruto says with a smirk before crouching and lunging at Blackfire, while Starfire peeked over the buildings as Naruto threw a punch towards Blackfire. The alien girl twisted to the side, however, and smirked as she ducked into a low sweeping kick, knocking Naruto off his feet and to the ground. Man, why can't I ever get a decent sparring partner like this when I want to? The blonde wondered to himself with a chuckle before flipping back to his feet and taking another stance. This again? Why don't you just quit while you're ahead? I'm in a whole other league compared to little Starfire, Blackfire stated to Naruto with her arms crossed and a smug smirk on her lips, making the blonde smirk as well. Good, then I really don't need to hold back, do I? Naruto quipped, surprising Blackfire as he suddenly shifted stances, his body seeming to relax as he took several deep breaths. Concentrate on your center, focus the power from within, Naruto said to himself as he closed his eyes and breathed out, then in once more. At that moment, the blonde seemed to simply vanish before Blackfire and Starfire, and then the strange chanting began all around them once more. Inu, Akuma, Yasagi, Hibi, Ukami, Tori, Tanuki, Haku, Taka, Itachi, Mangusu, Kitsune, Yama, Tori, Inu, Taka, Nico, Karasu, Hoshi, Hige, Kuma, Saru, Nazumi, Tori, Tora. The voice carried over the winds, as then Naruto seemed to slip out of the shadows behind Blackfire, and lashed out with his elbow to Blackfire's back. However, he wasn't done yet, as in a single fluid motion he suddenly twirled into a sweeping kick that ended in him kicking Blackfire into the air. Seemingly vanishing into the shadows once more, Starfire watched as X appeared behind Blackfire, grabbing her by one arm and tossing straight to the ground before vanishing once more. He reappeared below Blackfire, catching her with one fist to the girl's gut as she hit, coughing up spit in the process before he then tossed her into the air and lashed out with a double roundhouse kick. Shadow Claw Taijutsu Style 2. The Art of the Shadow Dance. The blonde said cryptically while slowly moving into a new stance while Blackfire was coughing up what felt like a lung. What was that? Blackfire demanded with wide eyes towards the ex-shinobi. Long ago, my mother and I lived together. We created this style together, to become one with the shadows, but she never got the chance to see it completed. Naruto said softly, though they both heard, as the blonde then took a breath then exhaled. I've only ever used this style against one opponent. I never fully trusted Style 2 fully, but I don't think I could forgive myself for only using it without ever testing its full potential. Naruto said darkly while moving his arms, the shadows literally moving as he did. How is it that you're doing that? Blackfire questioned while taking a few shaky steps back. My style is rather unique. Instead of focusing on strength of body, I focus on strength of mind. Using the fears of another is simple when you can read them like an open book, which is why this is Style 1. The Art of True Fear. Naruto said darkly, and Blackfire shot into the air then formed a dark bolt in one hand. I'm not afraid of anything, she shouted, tossing the energy ball towards the young former Nin, who simply moved in a smooth motion and unsheathed his sword. Spinning arm and body into a single turn, it looked as if the blonde suddenly caught the dark bolt with the blade of his sword. Surprising and scaring both Star and Blackfire, the blonde then spun his sword above him before throwing the bolt straight back at Blackfire. The bolt hit its mark, knocking Blackfire back while Naruto swung his sword back into its sheath and took a breath. Shimmering once before seeming to meld with the shadows around him once more, Starfire looks around for the teen, and when she is able to be certain he is no longer on the roof, rushes off to find her sister. Meanwhile, Blackfire groaned lightly in pain while slowly pushing a piece of rubble off of her. That bolt that hit her had sent her flying back into and through a building before she had managed to stop. Slowly getting to her feet, the girl looked up and turned pale, seeing the face of death itself in the form of Red X, Death's head mask. Why are you doing this? Blackfire questions while backing away from what she can only guess is another alien of some form to have all these strange powers. Because I knew someone like you once. Obsessed with the death of his brother for ruining his life. He sought out vengeance for years, living only for the purpose of that man's death. Naruto said darkly while walking closer and closer to Blackfire, whose back hit a wall as he cornered her like a cat would a mouse. He was so caught up in revenge, so consumed by it, that he lost sight of what he had in front of him. Naruto said and looked through his mask's lenses into the eyes of Blackfire. What do I care if some loon you knew went crazy? Blackfire demanded, and Naruto gripped her by the throat before glaring into her eyes. He was like you are like him, they're both true statements. For once Sasuke had his vengeance, it wasn't enough, he was still angry, he was still alone, and killing his brother only made him empty inside. He tried to fill that emptiness, fill it with people, fill it with battle, fill it with missions, but even after all that, he was never any less empty. Naruto explained darkly while glaring into Blackfire's eyes heatedly. Sasuke had fallen so far into darkness because of his quest for revenge that he no longer knew the way out. All that was left of my friend was an empty husk, Naruto said before dropping Blackfire on her ass. Now, do you honestly believe that by killing your sister, your own flesh and blood, things will be magically fixed for you? He questions while looking down at the girl who grits her teeth. What else do I have? All my life I've never had anything. I had no powers, no respect, and no real love from our father. Only our mother even openly acknowledged my damn existence. Blackfire angrily told the blonde while standing up, shaking with rage. I had to fight tooth and nail to get the respect of my father. I had to train myself into the dirt to learn my skills. I had to resort to theft just to get what I needed for this suit so I could have my powers. I had to fight for everything I've ever had. And yet Starfire always had all of that. Her powers, father's love, the people's respect. What did I have? Nothing, because I'm a calm secret. Blackfire roared and found Naruto's face in front of hers, a hand beside her head. Then what will revenge bring you? Naruto questioned, and Blackfire openly gaped at him before she replied. It'll prove I'm better than her, that I deserve the same attention she gets for free. Blackfire states, and Naruto shakes his head from side to side. I was like that once. I thought if I could beat someone, a girl I liked would love me, but she never really did. All you'll get from this Blackfire is the death of someone who truly does love and respect your little sister, he says simply, and Blackfire balks at the former nin's words. What does her opinion matter? She demands of the blonde teen, who merely leans back from her a moment. It probably should matter. I've never had a family. I'd think that since she is family, her opinion of you would matter quite a bit, Naruto stated, and Blackfire blinked, then looked at him strangely. Think it over, Naruto said, and then placed his hand on the back of her head, a static X attaching to the back of her neck. The device activated as soon as it had, the girl's eyes widening before rolling to the back of her head as Naruto caught the now unconscious fallen princess. Sweet dreams, princess, he said softly before kneeling down and placing her head gently to the floor. Sister! Starfire exclaimed, rushing over to the site and looking worriedly down at her sister, the blonde former kneeing, chuckling lightly to himself. She's fine, cutie, just unconscious, Naruto stated, and Starfire looked from her sister to the black-armored ex-shinobi. You okay? He then questioned, startling Starfire, who blinked before tensing, clearly remembering the last time they met. Why would you ask? You are the Red X, are you not? Starfire questions, and Naruto chuckles before then waving the girl's anger off. I asked because I helped. Shinobi rule number 4, never do anything unless you're prepared to finish it, Naruto stated, then recited the old rule his mother had told him when he was little, remembering the hell that rule seemed to get him in as a kid as well. Shinobi? Starfire questioned, and Naruto chuckled once more. I'm kind of from a race of assassins, he admitted, and Starfire made a no with her mouth. You're from outer space as well? She asked, and Naruto shook his head no. It's hard to explain where I'm from, Starfire. Let's just say I know what it's like to not fit in, Naruto said with a hidden, double meaning to his words before crossing his arms over his chest. Then, why did you help me? The redhead asked while rubbing her neck, and Naruto sighed and leaned back. I know what it's like to have people you consider family try to kill, lie, and utterly betray you. I know how much it hurts, and I don't want to see that happen to anyone else, he says as he watches Star before reaching out to Star. Let me help with that, the blonde says, and gets a confused look from the girl, till he places his now glowing green hands on her throat and feels the pain leave. How did you do that? Starfire questions with awe. She thought only Raven had a power like that. It's an ability my people can master, but it takes a lot of concentration, Naruto explained, thanking the heavens healing jutsu were in the scroll of sealing as well as the normal kenjutsus. Then I must thank you. But if I may ask, why do you continue to do what you do? If you wish to protect others from hurting, why aren't you one of the heroes? The girl questioned innocently, getting a sigh from Naruto, who looked to the sky above. Because I got sick of always being used or hurt, was all he said before placing a hand on Starfire's shoulder. The girl suddenly found them leaving her sister behind as they appeared on top of Titan's tower. Looking around, the two spot Raven meditating, only for her eyes to snap open and turn towards them. Yo, Karasuchan, did you guys lose this? He quips before flipping away from Starfire and vanishing once more with a quick flash of a demonic aura surrounding him. Starfire, do I even want to know what happened between you and X tonight? She asks, while trying to get images of a certain bucket hat wearing blonde out of her head as it appeared X and the blonde had indeed both called her Karasuchan. The Red X was simply aiding me with something, she said as she and her friend walked back into the tower, A mysterious little smile upon the alien girl's lips as she and her best female friend walked into the tower. The gray-eyed girl watched this. She seemed amused as she watched, looking onto X, Starfire, and Blackfire with amusement. However, upon seeing the skill, the finesse, the sheer power of X nearly made the girl shudder in anticipation of their first meeting. This was one with the power to lead her father's organization to new heights, to places beyond even her father's wildest imagination. All I need to do is continue to study him, the Titans, the hive brats, and those ninja, and I'll be ready to face them, then again. Ravager started then said as she turned to look at the information she already had on the ninja and smirked at a stilled image of Sasuke. Pawns can be such useful pieces in capturing the king, she said mysteriously before chuckling in her throat and turning off the view screen. Titan's Tower. Beast Boy, Cyborg, and Starfire all conversed with one another in the kitchen table, each one looking to the other. They sat in conference, over a most distressing subject indeed. Man, why is it we're throwing Robin a birthday party again? I mean, last year was a total bust, Cyborg said quietly, and Starfire answered for him. Because friend Robin is our friend and our leader, he does much work and tries very hard to keep us all safe. And we should honor his day of birth as we do for each other, Star said confidently, and Cy frowned before nodding his head and looking over to Beast Boy, who was trying to think. You okay, little dude? Cy questioned, and BB blinked. Yeah, BB said sheepishly before rubbing the back of his neck. Guys, I know we kind of throw a big bash for Rob all the time here at the tower, but what he really needs, if you ask me, is to get out more, BB said, and Cy blinked, then looked to Star, who suddenly started grinning widely. You mean we could have the large earthly parties in the large places? Glorious! I shall make the crown of meat for Robin immediately, she asked, then said excitedly, and Cy rubbed his chin. It cost a lot to rent a place for something like that. But if it was like a gift from all of them, it'd be worth it to get Robin off his workaholic kick for at least his birthday. BB, that might actually be the smartest thing you've ever said or suggested in your life, Cyborg praised, and BB grinned, before then blinking and gaping at him. Hey! He called out indignantly, and Cy chuckled to himself before looking to Starfire and BB with a serious expression. Alright, how do we get people to come to this big blowout then? And where exactly do you plan on holding it? Cy questioned with his arms crossed, and both Star and BB tried to think of someplace that they knew, that they could get in touch with, and would have a decent enough crowd for a party anyways. Hey! Why not Piano Pizza? It's always a hot spot for high school kids around our age and such. They even have that old DJ stuff and a karaoke set still around inside the main building, and they used to be a party place for teens. Maybe we could get the owners to throw a bash for Robin, BB offered, and Star grinned while Cy nodded his head slowly with a thoughtful expression. We have saved that place a lot, and the owner is really friendly, Cy said thoughtfully before frowning to himself. Well, that solves that problem. Next problem, he said, and BB groaned, Star looking to him confused. Raven, whenever we go out to parties, she's always by herself. Now who here wants Raven to be lonely while the rest of us are out jamming? Cy questioned, and both Star and BB's faces fell. If only friend Raven had a friend of her own to speak with at the parties, then perhaps she would not be so lonely, Star said mostly to herself, when BB's eyes lit up and a grin crossed over his face. Cy, what about that blonde guy she was hanging out with a couple days ago? BB said, and Cyborg blinked once, and then raised his flesh and blood brow to the green furry jester. What about him? Cy questioned, and BB began to rub his hands together with an evil chuckle. Think about it, Cy. If he was her boyfriend, maybe we could get him to come and keep Ray company, BB said, and Cy blinked, then slowly a smirk formed on his own lips as he leaned back in his seat. Yeah, and even if he was only a friend, he could still keep Raven company. BB, you're on a roll today, Cy said to his green-furred friend, and BB smiled with his arms crossed over his chest. Meaning you get to be the one to go out and find him while me and Star set up the party of the century in Robin's honor, Cy stated, then called out while Starfire happily giggled, and BB slammed his head into the table repeatedly, wondering why he even bothered to mention that guy. He didn't want to be the one to face one of Raven's friends alone. Streets of Jump City. Naruto was currently roaming the shelves in a local karma. It was a record store that he had found only a few days ago when he got bored and Gizmo was still working on a training room for him. So far, he had built up a modest collection of CDs by using his stolen cash from the string of robberies he pulled prior to being found out as Red X by the Teen Titans. He was currently looking at the cover to a new album called Chinese Democracy. Guns and Roses, huh? Personally, I like their old stuff better. A slightly familiar voice right next to him says. Naruto turns his head to his left, a stick of dark chocolate Pocky sticking out of his mouth, and who should he see but none other than the Green Titan himself, Beast Boy. Yeah, they're pretty good, Naruto says while placing the CD back on the shelf before reaching for a Metallica album instead. Is there anything you need? Or are you just here to bug me? He asks, not looking back at the green furry shapeshifter. Hearing this, Beast Boy temporarily scratches his head for a few seconds before snapping his fingers in recollection and asking a question. Are you and Raven really dating? He asks the blonde, hoping he won't get hit for the rather candid question. He is rather surprised though when Naruto reaches into the pocket of the new dark brown flak jacket he'd gotten recently and pulled out a box of Pocky, offering him a stick. Thanks? The green kid says, while quietly taking the offered pastry. Did Raven say we were or something? Naruto asks, fixing BB with a cool-eyed look to ensure he wouldn't lie. Beast Boy himself starts to sweat a little, realizing that if this guy can talk to the dark girl and not be scared, then what else can he do? Suddenly the green jester finds himself with a dry throat of thoughts of somehow being sent to a nightmare world, from whence there is no escape came to mind. No. She actually said she was just asking you a few questions, BB says demurely while taking a bite of the Pocky, so his mouth wouldn't say something he doesn't want it to, as seemed to happen at the worst of times. She was telling the truth then. Now calm down, I'm not going to bite your head off or something, the blonde tells him, smiling a small bit and betting that was what he was thinking. Upon hearing this, BB stops sweating and actually smiles towards the older blonde-haired teen. This Naruto, at least Raven told them that was his name, after much coaxing and prodding of course, seemed to be pretty cool. So, is that all you wanted to ask, or is there something else? Naruto then asks, while putting the CD back and deciding on getting a copy of Appetite for Destruction. Well, I don't know if I should be asking you this, but well, you see the thing is Robin's birthday is in a few days, and we're all going to this place to throw him a party. Whenever we go to places like that, Raven just sits alone in a corner or something. Well, Star and I were wondering if you'd like to come, and meet the rest of the team, and maybe get Ray to have some fun for once, seeing as you like being around her or something. We'd do it, but we normally go off and do our own things at parties. BB finishes, taking the final bite from his stick of Pocky. BB looks at Naruto, expecting a reproachful look or a flat-out no from one of Raven's friends. He is surprised, however, to see the blonde scratching the bridge of his nose in a thoughtful manner. Alright, I'll go. Just please don't track me down again, alright? Makes me feel like I'm back at home, Naruto tells the green-skinned teen while shuddering as he remembers the few times people would track him down, usually for something painful. Where is this party anyways? Naruto questioned, and BB let out a sigh of relief before giving a grin to the older teen. Piano Pizza! Meet us there in 3 days at 9! He said happily, and Naruto frowned before nodding his head, seeing as that was the pizza joint that the Titans frequented after all. Walking to the register and paying for the CD and leaving BB standing there with a very dazed look on his face. Shaking out of it after a few seconds, the green jester scratches the back of his head and leaves as well, a single thought running through his head. Man, either Raven's going to be very, very happy for this, or very, very pissed off at us for this. Then again, she might be both, the green teen thought while inwardly pleading for the former over the latter. With Naruto, well, that was a bit of a surprise, the blonde Jinchuriki says to himself while walking down the street with his hat shadowing his eyes. Besides, hanging out with the kids can't be that bad. I mean, Raven is pretty interesting to talk to. Starfire isn't as ditzy as I thought she was. Naive, yes, ditzy, no. And hell, Beast Boy seems like he has good taste in music. Naruto thinks to himself, then looks around as he hears an eerily familiar sound, the sound of flesh hitting wood at a velocity not usually coming from mortal man. Looking around for the sound, Naruto eventually finds himself standing before a dojo of all things, a lot like the one that Lee had set up back home after he had saved up some money. Of course I helped him. He said he'd pay me back, but it wasn't a hassle to help Lee. He's always been a real friend after all. The blonde teen thinks to himself while looking over the building with a slight interest. It is a small, square building made completely from wood, with a window at the front curtained off, a sign just above the entrance saying, Lair of the Dragon. What's even weirder is that Naruto has somehow found himself in Chinatown, a section of Jump City with most architecture based off of Chinese buildings and a high concentration of Asians due to it. Curious, despite being a master of his very own personal style of taijutsu, he walks to the large double doors and slides them open. Inside, he finds a large room with none other than Robin himself beating on a training dummy. The traffic light is surprisingly not dressed in his usual attire. Instead, he is dressed in a plain white GI, mask still on, repeatedly hitting the training post. He must be thinking of someone to hit a lot. Hope it's not me. Naruto thinks to himself as he watches for a few minutes, analyzing the boy blunder as he runs through the same series of lightning-quick punches and kicks with deadly accuracy. When the kid stops for a break, panting and sweating, Naruto starts to clap his hands slowly yet loudly. Not bad, man, not bad at all. Robin looks towards the new voice, only to see a blonde kid in a pair of black khakis, black combat boots, black fingerless gloves with the metal plates on the backs of his fists, a red t-shirt, and a dark brown flak jacket, and a green and white bucket hat resting on top of his head to shadow his eyes. Thanks, I'm still trying to get it to the right speed, he says while also wiping the sweat from his brow. Look pretty damn fast to me, Naruto replies, placing his bag down and walking towards a fridge in the far corner. Though truly, while it was pretty damn fast, Lee would have smoked Robin, and possibly taken his head off if he took off his weights. Reaching into the fridge, he takes out a bottle of water and tosses it over to the masked teen. Robin catches the bottle and gives the blonde a quick thanks before taking a drink of it to cool off. It's not fast enough. You see, the problem with that combo is that most of it is pure power I don't quite have yet, Robin says while looking at his arms with a frown, obviously meaning his muscular power, but still this causes Naruto to cast him a slight glare. What would you do with that power if you had it? He asks, earning a quizzical look from the masked teen a few feet away. What do you mean? Naruto gives a small laugh before continuing. I've had friends who wanted power for many reasons. They always want it but never really thought of what they'd do with it. Me, I could have a lot of power for myself, but I learned something that makes me want power less and less. Naruto explained simply and saw Robin raise a brow. What did you learn? Robin questioned, and Naruto looked up as old memories came back to the surface of a young man who showed him the meaning of true power. A lesson an old friend of mine taught me. I'll spare you the long, boring version that Haki used. What I'm asking you is, will you use your power wisely and protect those closest to you, or will you abuse your power and use it only for yourself and your own ambitions? As Naruto finishes, understanding appears in the bird boy's eyes upon hearing this. I'd protect my friends, the city, and those that are closest to me, he states, voice not even wavering a bit, and causing a smirk to cross over the blonde-haired boy's lips. Great. Remember, with great power come great responsibility. I only have a single question, Naruto says while walking over to his bag and picking it back up. What? Robin asks, standing to turn back to his training post, intent on continuing. Do you own this place or something? Naruto asks, trying not to sound stupid. Robin gives him a smile and a shake of the head. No. The guy who does lets me train here for free, seeing as I always save the city, he replies, waving as the blonde teen leaves, only to remember something. Hey, what's your? But before he could ask, the blonde was gone. 3 days later. Naruto stood just outside Piano Pizza, at 9 o'clock. Okay, so he was a couple minutes late, but in his own defense he did have to convince his team that crashing the party might get the Titans extra mad at them. By the looks of things, everyone there was having a pretty good time, so he was glad he put in that extra work. There was loud music playing, cheers, yells, and even some laughing. With a cocky smirk over his face, Naruto walks in and heads for the front desk. Sitting there is the same girl that first gave him a tour of the city. She looks up as he approaches and actually seems surprised upon seeing the blonde-haired teen. "Can I help you?" she asks, obviously bored and wanting to join the party out on the veranda. "Yeah, I'm here for the party," he tells her with a wave, completely calm. She nods her head and motions him through the door. He thanks her and walks through, only to be immediately caught by Beast Boy. "Hey, you actually made it!" he shouts, nobody really noticing the green gestures, yelling. "Hey, before you go find Raven, there are a few people I need you to meet." Obviously, the green teen was a little too enthusiastic. He leads him over to a table where a group of local high school kids are sitting and eating pizza. Naruto stops in his tracks as he recognizes two of the girls sitting there surrounded by boys. One had bright pink hair and jade green eyes. The other had dark pupilless blue eyes and long platinum blonde hair. It was none other than Ino Yamaka and Sakura Haruno, though the schoolgirl uniforms were really something. Whoa, Jiraiya thought. Naruto thought to himself while quickly turning away, obviously trying to hide himself from them. Actually, I think I'll just go and find Raven," he says, confusing BB as he walks away very quickly, seemingly trying to avoid the table like it held the plague. Shrugging his shoulders, BB grins and heads on over to the high school kids to try and convince the pretty blonde, who looked eerily like Terra, to go on a date with him. Naruto, however, walks around for a few minutes before he finally spots Raven in the corner edge of the veranda, looking out over the streets with a dull look to her eyes. Smirking to himself, he silently walks over behind her and smiles. "You're not joining the party?" Surprised, Raven turns around to see none other than the blonde teen that has been on her mind for the past several days had appeared once more. He was dressed the same as when she first met him, metal-plated gloves and all, except for the flak jacket. What surprised her even more was the fact that he had somehow known she was here and that he had managed to sneak up on her. "What are you doing here?" she asks in a monotone as usual, while crossing her arms over her chest and wondering if he's some kind of stalker. "Well, I heard you guys were throwing a party and just decided to drop by. Thought you could use some company," Naruto says with a simple smile and leaning against the veranda. Raven, arms still crossed, gives him a suspicious look before asking him a question. "Did Beast Boy ask you to come?" she asks, somehow unable to get past the ironclad defenses surrounding his mind. How is his mind defended like this? Naruto himself is sweating a little. While still knowing she is unable to read his mind because of Kyuubi's meddling, she can obviously see signs like the thin coating of sweat on his throat, and the subtle changes in his stance. "No. Just thought it would be kind of cool if I met the rest of your team," he says, trying to hide the truth. Apparently, Raven buys it. With a shrug of her shoulder and sweep of her cloak, she turns to look back at the city. Naruto walks up beside her, also looking out at the city lights. "So, why aren't you even trying to enjoy the party?" he asks her, slipping his hands into his pockets. Raven looks at him before giving the only explanation she can give him, which is ironically the truth. "I don't socialize easily. I never have. I was raised in a temple by a group of monks. I spent all of my time either training or studying. Other kids didn't let me play with them. They called me Ghost Girl and other things, said I was haunting the temple or something. The adults seldom even let me near their kids anyways, called me other things I'd rather not mention." Raven explained and didn't see Naruto's eye flash crimson for a second before they returned back to normal. "I guess that, whenever we go to parties, that fear of being hated still follows me. Besides, I'm not really all that pretty," she explains, then says, showing Naruto that they had similar childhoods. He looks at her, her beautifully pale skin, deep violet eyes, silky dark hair, and smiles. She's pretty, gorgeous actually, maybe she just needs someone to actually tell her that. "You know, the thing my father did, he was actually considered a hero for it," Naruto said suddenly, and Raven looked at him strangely. "But for the same thing, I was beaten, shunned, and picked on. Everyone called me all kinds of names, and I always had this fear that I would never be truly accepted unless I made something great of myself." Naruto explained while keeping some things to himself, Wouldn't do to take away all the mystery after all. I held on to that hope for so long, that when that future was taken from me, when everything I thought I had turned out to be nothing more than a lie, I ran away. Then I ended up here, and I found that it didn't matter what I did, I would always be seen as somewhat of an outcast. As Naruto tells her this and as she looks up at him, a slow song comes over the speakers, Tiny Dancer by Elton John. With a smile, Naruto quickly takes hold of her hand. Come on! Dance with me, he says, leading her over to the dance floor. I don't really know how to dance, Raven says while also trying to tell him she doesn't want to. With a smile, he puts a hand gently on her shoulder. Then I'll show you how, he tells her, but still she tries to leave the edge of the dance floor, but his hand on her shoulder holds her still. Then, the next thing he says pulls her attention back to him. Don't you trust me? He asks, holding out his hand as she turns around. And the strangest thing is, for some reason even she doesn't fully understand she does trust him. She doesn't know why, but she feels more calm and happy around him than anybody else from either Azar or Earth. Yes, I do, she says slowly before taking his hand as he wraps it and her other hand around his neck and put his other hand onto her hip. They start to move in a very slow circle, almost completely absorbed into each other's eyes. I could get used to this, it's nice and calm, Naruto thinks with a slight smile, Raven's thoughts mirroring his as they calmly sway with the music, at least until a shrill shout shoots over the music. Ino Pig, get back here! Sakura yells playfully as the platinum blonde runs away from her, carrying a large cup of coke. Never! Ino shouts back to the Pinkite, only to stop running before she suddenly meets eyes with a familiar blonde wearing a flak jacket and a bucket hat. I'd know those eyes anywhere. Naruto. Then she notices he's dancing with Raven of all people. Holy shit! Doesn't he know who she is? As this thought runs through her head, and as the song ends, Sakura apars beside her, following her line of sight until she too sees one Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto? Why is he dancing with emo girl? She says to inner Sakura, only for her inner persona to start shouting about a slut of a goth stealing her man. Back with Naruto and Raven, the blonde ninja himself has stopped moving and has made eye contact with the two girls. Raven follows his line of sight, and sees the way the three ninja are glaring at each other. Naruto, do you know those two? She asks, only for him to shake his head and start to speak, but he is cut off when a voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, starting now, we are going to have karaoke for $1 a song. Now, if any of you wish to come up here and sing a song, come on up. Nobody moves. Then, Naruto raises his hand and walks towards the stage. I'll sing, he says simply before jumping up and onto the stage. As Naruto gets up on stage and hands the man $3 out of his pocket, the man asks him his name. Naruto. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. But for tonight, just call me the Kyubi no Kitsune, he says loudly into the microphone, and immediately, Raven, Ino, and Sakura head for the edge of the stage, wondering what he would do now. As Naruto picks out 3 songs, he speaks into the microphone again. Also, if Yamanka Ino and Haruno Sakura are here at this party, which I know they are, then I would appreciate it if they listen to the words of an old friend one last time. After that, the music starts out with an ascending guitar sound followed by drums and a bit of rough picking over the speakers as Naruto starts to sing. It's all the same, only the names have changed. Every day, it seems we're wasting away. Another place, where the faces are so cold. I'd drive all night, just to get back home. Here, Naruto raises his fist slightly with eyes closed and head tilted up a bit. His voice itself is haunting to the 3 girls, spelling out his current predicament. I'm a cowboy, on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted dead or alive. Wanted dead or alive. The guitar plays the same tune over the speakers, but this time getting louder and just a little faster. Sometimes I sleep, sometimes just not for days. And the people I meet always go their separate ways. Sometimes you tell the days by the bottle that you drink, sometimes when you're alone, all you do is think. These words hit everyone a little hard. For some people, it's because they know the song, but have never seen anybody sing it with such emotion. For the 3 that know this blonde, they can tell exactly what he's talking about. I'm a cowboy, on a steel horse I ride, I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. Wanted, wanted, dead or alive. And I ride. After that slight yell, a guitar solo starts over the speakers, as Naruto himself bobs his low-hung head to the very erratic sounds of the stringed instrument. And I'm a cowboy, and I'm wanted dead or alive. And I walk these streets, a loaded 6-string on my back. I play it for keeps, 'cause I might not make it back. I've been everywhere, still I'm standing tall, I've seen a million faces, and I've rocked them all. At this point Naruto still has his eyes closed, and is leaning back a little bit before picking up the mic stand and then slamming it back, bass down, and continuing. 'Cause I'm a cowboy, on a steel horse I ride, and I'm wanted dead or alive. As the song ends, everyone claps, only for another song to start. This one with light drum and cymbals before leading into a quick note with a guitar, at which point Naruto bangs his head with it. Every time the song does this, he does the same. Then, as the song builds to a beginning, crescendo, he shouts, "Yeah!" The music continues with an alternative sound, including a heavy background accompaniment of a guitar, bass, and drums. Then, as the Naruto kicks the mic stand to the side and takes the mic in hand, he starts to sing. I know what darkness means. And the void you left for me. The isolation stings. So I think it wants to bleed. The echoes in my brain. Of the things you said to me. You took my everything. Now I'm coming for you. Naruto shouts the final part, banging his head again, and the continuing. I won't back down. I will not bow. I've come to bring you hell. And I can't forget the things you did. I've come to bring you hell. Here Ino and Sakura start to get a bit scared at what he's saying. They clearly get the message. The only thing they can really do is try to talk to him calmly. He starts to sing again. This time, he's glaring directly at the two of them, who are standing right next to Raven. The shadows that you see, in the places that you sleep, are memories of me. You better pray your soul to keep the truth behind your eyes. You know that place you ever see. Your darkest little lies are coming for you. Naruto shouts again. Raven can obviously tell that he does know the two girls next to her. She would have to find out about this. Moreover, he seems to be royally pissed at the two of them for some reason. She sighs as he starts on the chorus again. I won't back down. I will not bow. I've come to bring you hell. And I can't forget the things you did. I've come to bring you hell. All the scars that will not heal. All the wounds that will not seal. I will not forget the day, these memories never fall. Naruto keeps singing with a lot of emotion, as the song goes into a quick solo with the guitar before he finishes the song with a repeat of the chorus. And ending with a single phrase. I've come to bring you hell. Then, the next song begins, going completely alternative with a very heavy combination of drums, bass, and guitar. Then Naruto starts to sing once more. Circling you head, contemplating everything you ever said. Now I see the truth, I got a doubt. A different motive in your eyes and now I'm out. See you later. I see your fantasy, you want to make it a reality, paved in gold, see inside of our heads. Yeah, well now that's over. I see you motive inside, decisions to hide. At the end of this opening, he jumps up and then leaps over as he hits the ground, head hanging over the teens that had been partying and dancing harder than before, since the beginning of the second song. Back off, I'll take you on. Headstrong, I'll take on anyone. I know that you are wrong. Headstrong, we're headstrong. Back off, I'll take you on, headstrong to take on anyone. I know that you are wrong, and this is not where you belong. I can't give everything away. I won't give everything away. As Naruto finishes the first chorus, Ino and Sakura get it into their heads that Naruto is only bluffing about taking them all on, while Naruto himself is fairly confident he could take them all on. After all, he'd never used Sage Mode to fight them before. With a look and a nod to each other, Sakura and Ino agree to put his words to the test after he leaves. Conclusions manifest. First impressions got to be your very best. I see you're full of shit, and that's alright. That's how you play, I guess you'll get through every night. Well now that's over, I see your fantasy, you want to make it a reality. Paved in gold, see inside of our heads. Well, now that over. I see your motives inside, decisions to hide. With a few more continuations of the chorus, Naruto finishes the song, and breathing heavily looks up, blinking when some call for an encore and looks to the manager. "Ah, what the hell, go ahead kid, give them one for the road," he says to Naruto with a grin, which Naruto returns and looks for a song before grinning as he finds one he likes. As he picks it, a slow song seems to start with a strange kind of techno beat to it. It starts with one thing, I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try, keep that in mind. I designed this rhyme to explain in due time. Naruto sang while thinking of the ninja searching for him, standing under the lights and looking down on the Konohanain coldly. Both Ino and Sakura looked to one another briefly, wondering what the blonde was doing now. All I know. Time is a valuable thing. Watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Watch it count down to the end of the day. The clock ticks life away. It's so unreal. The blonde sang out before taking a breath of air to continue. Didn't look up below. Watched the time go right out the window. Trying to hold on. But didn't even know. Wasted it all just to watch you go. Naruto sang out loud, thinking of how he found Sakura and Sasuke together before he left them that day, how he had wasted all those years of trying to get Sakura, only for him to toss him away at the first chance she got. I kept everything inside, and even though I tried so hard, it all fell apart. What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of a time when I tried so hard. Naruto sang out before taking a quick breath and going on, knowing he'd also forget about his old home and former love for himself. I tried so hard and got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. Naruto sang out loudly, while moving animatedly over the stage, a grin crossing his lips as that part reminded him of how he had to betray Konoha in order to lose his feelings for Sakura. Then again, it didn't matter anymore. One thing, I don't know why. Doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard. Naruto sang in a slightly softer voice with his shadowed eyes glaring out towards a slightly frightened Sakura and Ino. In spite of the way you were mocking me, acting like I was a part of your property, remembering all the times you fought with me, I'm surprised it got so far. Naruto sang out softly while thinking of how Sakura would hit and yell at him all the time, even after he saved her numerous times. Things aren't the way they were before. You wouldn't even recognize me anymore. Not that you knew me back then. But it all comes back to me. In the end. Naruto called out loudly, rearing his head back as he remembered how he wasn't Naruto Uzumaki, the kid who had a crush on her and always forgave her. No, he was someone else. Someone who wouldn't forgive her or even think of her that way ever again. You kept everything inside, and even though I tried, it all fell apart. What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of a time when I tried so hard. I tried so hard and got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. The blonde called out, walking across the stage, then pointing directly at Sakura with a frown nearly visible on his face if looked at from the front row of people. I put my trust in you. Pushed as far as I can go. For all this, there's only one thing you should know. Naruto sang out softly, thinking of everything he'd ever done for the girl, before a snarl made its way to his face and he clenched his outstretched hand into a fist. I put my trust in you. Pushed as far as I can go. For all this, there's only one thing you should know. Naruto called out in a much harsher voice, remembering what he got for all that work, namely her cheating on him with Sasuke. As he did, the blonde slowly brought his arm to his side and sent it up above his head as he finished the song. I tried so hard. And got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. Naruto finished loudly before slowly his head lowered as the ending part of the song played, a single blood-red eye with a slit pupil glowing from the shadows of his hat, and over to Sakura's field of vision. As it did and the crowd cheered and clapped, the Nin ignored the noise only to see a predatory grin form over the blonde's lips, creeping out both Sakura and Ino, either of whom ever saw that look on the blonde before. As soon as he is finished with his glare to both Sakura and Ino, the blonde boy gives a grand bow to the cheering teens below. Quickly retrieving the mic stand and replacing both it and the mic, Naruto then jumps down from the stage and finds BB immediately in front of him. "Dude! That was so totally awesome!" BB calls out, and Naruto shrugs before inching over to Raven, who gives him a look. "You don't seem to like those two girls much," she said flatly, and Naruto twitched only once before giving a shrug. "What can I say, they piss me off," Naruto offered with a semi-sly look, and Robin and the others also came over, Robin blinking then smirking upon seeing who the blonde he met a couple days ago was. "So you're Raven's mysterious new friend, you could have said something," Rob joked, and Naruto blinked then chuckled lightly. "Where's the fun in that?" Naruto questioned and saw Robin roll his eyes while Sai patted the blonde on the shoulder. "Man, that was pretty damn good. I haven't heard anyone sing those songs with that much emotion save, well, the guys who wrote them," Sai says, and Naruto scoffs before having a death hug from Star and inwardly groans. "Hello friend of friend Raven. I am Starfire, and I am so happy to meet you." Starfire calls out happily, and Naruto twitches while trying to get out of the happy red-haired alien's grasp, and Raven takes pity on him. "He needs to breath, Starfire," she offers, and Star drops the blonde with a gasp. "Oh, I am so sorry friend, I am sometimes forgetting my own strength," Starfire says to the blonde quickly, and Naruto gives her a pained grin. "Damn, Lee's the only person who has ever hugged me that hard, but thankfully that was much more pleasant than the ones from Lee, hee. Naruto thought to himself, then leaned over to Raven. "I think your friends like me," he quipped, and Raven rolled her eyes, smirking slightly despite herself. "They just don't know you well yet," she said simply, and Naruto chuckled. "Neither do you, Karasa-chan," he replied, and Raven looked at him oddly for the nickname, as it seemed to be becoming more common for some reason. "Dude, you speak Japanese?" BB asked excitedly, and Naruto nodded his head. "Cool. Then do you know what Dekiro means?" BB asked, and Naruto blinked before scratching his head and wondering why the green jester was asking. "Skull," he said simply, and BB nodded his head before turning to his large titanium-plated friend. "Told you that was why Dekiro's called that in Cyborg Shinobi Showdown, Sai," BB stated, and Sai crossed his arms. "Just cause the dude wore a skull mask don't mean that's why his name was Dekiro," Sai stated, and Naruto decided to add his own 2 cents into the conversation. "Actually, if you're talking about shinobi, then it does. Shinobi tended to use code names based on animals for missions with masks to go with them. A skull mask would actually go well with a high-level assassination shinobi," Naruto explained, and Raven gave him a strange look. "You know a lot about ninja," she said flatly, and Naruto rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "I had a little ninjutsu training back home and did a little research on past ninja and their habits," he said with a shrug, and Robin blinked before looking intrigued. "Really? Cool, one of my teachers taught me a form of it, but he more conformed to the samurai code of Bushido than the ninja's kill or be killed methods," Robin explained, and a frown crossed over Naruto's lips. "You seem to forget that samurai were often very brutal, while ninja were a bit more covert. Samurai would brutally punish anyone for even the smallest infraction to their honor, while ninja could care less about personal honor and more for the well-being of the country they protected. Ninja lived in the shadows in order to serve a lord of some form. They would kill, they would steal, and they would spy in order to protect their home and country. That was the way of the shinobi. Samurai were all well-known, all rich, and all pompous dicks as opposed to shinobi," Naruto explained, and saw Robin cup his chin while the other titans looked at both confused. "Dude, I don't even know what you two are talking about anymore," BB said flatly, and both boys looked at him, then one another, and shrugged. "Yeah, well, I still think you knowing ninjutsu is cool. Maybe we could spar sometime if you're free," Robin offered, and Naruto shrugged before covertly looking around and noting Sakura and Ino were leaning against the wall glaring at him. "Maybe, but I really better get home. My roommates get really angry when I'm out for too long," Naruto said while saying goodbye to the titans and taking his leave. Raven, watching him leave, narrowed her eyes and discreetly followed him, seeing the 2 girls from before following him. Naruto himself is walking down the street before quickly turning into a dark alley. knowing that his 2 academy classmates are definitely behind him. Naruto! He stops with a smirk hearing this and slowly turns around and sees Sakura and Ino standing behind him. His smirk widens as they walk towards him, both with absolutely livid expressions on their faces. Can I help you ladies with anything? He asks while stuffing his hands into his pockets again. At hearing the blonde's words, Ino twitches once before trying to smack him, only for the other blonde to dodge with a smirk while she puts her hands on her hips. Don't even try to act innocent. You broke up with Sakura, attacked Sasuke, failed, left the village, dragged us here, and now you just publicly insulted us. She yells, getting a very hearty laugh from her fellow blonde. Is that what the bitch next to you said? And while I did publicly humiliate someone, let me tell you the truth about what's going on here. He starts, only for Sakura to lunge at him, fist flying. He catches her arm and bends it behind her back, holding her immobile. Not now, Sakura. I'm telling Ino-chan here's why I left. I left because the village didn't need its big hero anymore. Hell, no one wanted me there in the first place. Your Hokage Tsunade never bothered to tell me about numerous inheritances I was supposed to get. The council tried to steal those as well. Naruto said angrily while Ino looked at him in shock. Obviously none of them knew the facts of why he left, and right now felt like a good time to enlighten them. And before I forget, I also left because I caught this pink-haired little harlot, who was supposed to be my girlfriend at the time, cheating on me with Sasuke, my supposed brother, without thought or care of me. He says before pulling on Sakura's arm a little, making her grimace in pain. So, I took the scrolls and clan items that were rightfully mine in the first freaking place, and I left that Kami-forsaken shithole behind me. After that, he let go of the girl's arm, shoving her forward to Ino as he makes a quick decision. What do you say, we all get together and fight it out? No restrictions. No rules. If I win you back off for a while, you won't bother me, and I won't bother looking for your asses. You win, and I come along quietly. Ino gives him a look as she helps Sakura with her arm. Inwardly, however, she figures with all of them it would be a sink to take Naruto down, thus ending this charade of a mission at last. Just say when, asshole. She finally responds, flipping him the bird with one hand and pulling her eyelid down with her tongue out with the other. Naruto just chuckles before giving them a location and time. After that, the 2 girls walk back into the party. Naruto turns, only for a wall of black energy to get in the way. He smiles before turning around and spotting none other than the Dark Titan herself behind him, outstretched hand glowing with the same black energy. Hey Karasu-chan. How much of that did you hear exactly? He asks the girl with a sheepish grin and rubbing the back of his neck, only for the energy behind him to wrap itself around his body, holding him in place. Ah crap. He mutters to himself while Raven walks towards him, still holding the energy in place. Everything, she says, hand clenching into a fist as the black substance holds him tighter. However, suddenly it disappears, almost seeming to be drawn into his stomach somehow. This alone surprises her, as she's never seen anything actually start absorbing her energy without some kind of ill effect. Okay, that was new, Naruto murmured, though decided not to look a gift horse in the mouth while brushing himself off. That conversation is something I would prefer if you kept to yourself. Now if you don't mind, I have to go get ready, he tells her, walking away. Raven stands there, a puzzled and quizzical look on her face. Just who are you, Naruto Uzumaki? She wondered to herself with a frown before teleporting back to the tower. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.